Got my sticker to prove it.
Those of us diehards that have to show up on the day, right?
You all, the good part about it, I didn't figure it would be busy, and you know what? It wasn't. There was 2 people in front of me, and that's it.
Yeah.
All right, Mayor, at 6:30.
Okay. Let's roll.
All right. As a preliminary matter, this is Zoe Burgess, your city clerk. Please permit me to confirm that all council members, staff, and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Before I go ahead, if you are on a telephone device or if you have not muted your computers, please do so now. Again, if you're on a telephone, you will have to mute your device. Council members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Councilman John Paul O'Connor.
Present.
Councilwoman Kara Crump.
Present.
Councilman Patrick Paul.
Present.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson.
Present.
Mayor Roger Manning.
Present.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. City Attorney Pam Booker.
Present.
City Manager Kenneth Castle.
I can hear you.
Westlake Accountant Stephen Fowler.
Yes.
Thank you. Public comments are accepted at least 24 hours prior to the meeting utilizing the electronic comment card available on the city's website. Public comments are also permitted at the appropriate time during the meeting. The mayor will call for such during a public comment at the end of the meeting, and you may participate at this time utilizing the system's virtual hand feature and waiting to be acknowledged if you wish to comment. Please note this meeting is being recorded, both voice and video, and to remember your mic may be live. I will mute any microphones that carry any feedback or interruption. However, you can unmute yourself. Any person in the virtual meeting causing a disruption or being inappropriate will be removed from the meeting. Again, if you have dialed in, please mute your device. Thank you. Mayor Manning?
Of the City of Westlake City Council to order, August 18th, 2020 at 6:32 p.m. This meeting is being held in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order 2020-69, as extended by Executive Order 20-179 and as adopted by the City of Westlake City Council in Emergency Ordinance 2020-08. Due to COVID-19 and the need to ensure public health, safety, and welfare, this meeting may be conducted without a quorum of its members present physically or at a specific location and utilizing communications media technology such as telephonic or video conferencing as provided by Section 120.54 5B2 Florida statutes. City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Yes, Councilman John Paul O'Connor.
Present.
Councilwoman Kara Crump.
Present.
Councilman Patrick Paul.
Here.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson.
Present.
Mayor Manning.
And
Mayor, yep, you're muted.
present. Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you. We have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We're here tonight to discuss the budget for 2021. Everyone, I assume, has gotten their packet and gone through and probably has some questions or some comments on it. So let's start with, though, I'd like to go through the budget by line item. It's not that big, there's not that many line items. If, Mr. Fowler, if you just go through and explain each of the items on the revenues and the expenditures and how they fall into the budget.
Zoe, would you share, him share the screen? Then we'll walk through it. One of the items that on your static copy, Mr. Mayor, you had asked before, the developer contribution shows a negative. That's because that static budget does not show any of the expense line items in the final budget. Once we start moving the line items over to the final budget, then that will come down to the exact number of developer contribution. When we have the final total expenses, it's the balancing number.
Okay, so, and, just so I understand correctly, once we adopt the budget, then
the budget
that number will be adjusted against what the expenditures are for the revenue?
Well, once we walk through it tonight, we're not adopting the budget tonight.
Right.
What we're doing is setting up the budget for the September meeting, which would be the first public hearing. As we walk through the line items tonight, you'll see, for example, as we start moving lines from the proposed 2021 budget, the revised proposed, over to the final, if there are no changes with it, then that number will come down to an exact number of what would be required for the developer contribution as we finish.
Okay, so in other words, the $1,345,233 is projected then?
That's projected right now based upon the numbers. If you go down in there, the numbers that are in the total expenses of $2,947,1,000 gives you the requirement of the $2,947,000 in the revenue.
Okay.
Okay. So that would balance out. So what happens is it becomes a balancing budget, and that was with the $1,345,233 is that balancing number.
Okay.
As we go down, it'll come up and end up, if we put everything in the final line items as it is in the
right
proposed
now.
Revised, then that column would match exactly.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
So the first line in there is pardon me for jumping in on the comments. I think it'll be clearer if I walk through it.
Can we make that bigger or not? That it's very hard to read these numbers. Not that it matters since we got it in paper in front of us, I guess.
Right. See if you can enlarge your screen some, Stephen.
Mayor, if you look on the left side on mine, there is a way to enlarge it. If you kind of click on the picture,
The zoom in.
and there should be a little toolbar come up where you can enlarge it.
Okay.
All right. The first line item in the revenues is what is projected from the ad valorem taxes is 1.164549 is what's projected on the latest from the property appraisers. The next line, the 46,582, is the discounts that are anticipated if everybody pays early. Next is what we're projecting from the local option fuel tax. Next is franchise fees, which is from, I believe FPL is that one. The next line item, the 152.8, is the utility surtax that we passed a couple years ago. And then the 26,400 on revenue is the tax on water. The 18,800 is a tax on gas, which is also a utility tax that we put forward. And something happened to your screen, Stephen. Oh, okay. The communications service tax of $17,800 is the taxes on the cell phones and stuff that are registered within the telecommunications within the area. The $3,500 is the occupational licenses. You'll notice that the building permits and inspection fees are no longer in this protected budget because they have been moved by statute into its own special revenue fund, because you cannot use revenues from building departments and planning, zoning, engineering departments. You cannot use for general fund, covering any general fund expenses. All expenses have to be directly recorded to those departments. So that's why there's nothing in there for this year on revenues. This building permit surcharge of $2,000 is going to be relocated into that special fund as well. We had missed that. It needs to go into the special fund revenue because it is generated off the building permit surcharge and can be only used for administration of those. Let's see, building permits fee and admin fee. Those are the same thing, Stephen, correct? They need to go over? No,
15,000.
Yeah,
The
what's the 15?
The $15,000 is the fee charged to participate in the FPL tug program, which creates temporary electrical for construction.
Okay, and
so that's what that 15,000. The 86.5.
Yes.
Is the admin fee on the impact fee program.
Okay.
I looked at the county code, and while they don't restrict technically how the funds can be used, the amount of admin fee that you're allowed is the lesser of 3.4% of the impact fees or the actual cost to administer the program.
Okay.
So
that's how we arrived at the 86.5, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's 3.4% of the impact fees.
Gotcha. Thank you. Other license fees and permits are $2,500. Revenue sharing is municipal revenue sharing is projected to be $4,700. We're not sure if we're going to get the half-cent sales tax. We took it out because of, I lost your sheet there, Steve, because of the decline in projected sales taxes and stuff this year. Where are we? Administrative fees of 10.5. That's yours, Stephen.
That pertains to cost to administer the housing assistance program.
The Healthy program, okay.
That's not a fee. Well, we're collecting a fee.
The city is collecting a fee from that program. That's why it's called a fee.
Okay.
So there would be it would be an expense to the housing assistance fund and revenue to the general fund.
Okay.
And the public safety charge fees is what?
That is That is revenue that we get from the sheriff's office for
Citations,
alarm
et cetera.
permits, for alarm permits and charges for
Okay.
burglar alarms.
And the solid waste revenue is a fee we get off of for handling these solid waste accounting, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the admin fee pertaining to the contract with advanced
Yes.
disposal services.
Okay. And the 12.5 other operating revenues is generated from where?
Trash bin sales. We're projecting to convert next year from the smaller bins to the larger bins. So that's the
It's projected revenue for people wanting the larger bins versus the smaller bins that we're starting.
correct.
The residents would actually pay for that, to create that?
Yeah, if you'll recall, Mayor, we started off with the solid waste system would only handle a 45-gallon can, so we started off with a process of 45-gallon cans. With the new contract, they will be able to pick up a 50-gallon, 96-gallon can. So what we did is the difference between a 45-gallon can that we decided to provide as part of our base price, shall we say, the difference between that is about $50. So if somebody wants a 96 instead of a 45, they can either buy a second 45 if they want two smaller cans in the garage, or they can pay the $50 and get the 96-gallon delivered and only have one can.
Did I understand correctly? You're going to be moving forward with the 96 only, or it's still going to be set up the way it is now, where you get a 45 off the bat?
It's a 45 unless you want the 96.
Then you pay the difference.
Then you pay the difference, because that keeps the policy as a standard policy from the beginning. Also, what we're probably going to find is in the Crestwind facilities, of those 800 plus homes, most of them are probably two people only, a 45. Again, that's a standard. Yes, in the areas where we have families with more people, yes, you fill up a 96 in a hurry. But with a person type household, a 45 is ample with a two week pickup, twice a week pickup.
Right. They may want the smaller bin. Okay.
Correct.
Fair enough.
We're leaving people with options.
Good.
Okay, so let's go on down and start with that covers all of the expenses, Stephen, or revenues. Yes, the other one, like I said before, Mr. Mayor, is the one that will adjust as we go down, moving expenses of now it's 1.5 because we took out some revenue up top that we're not going to receive, which will go into the other fund. So we're at 1.599,867 right now. Is a negative. It will zero out as we move items over.
Right. Okay. So the projected year-end budget for 2020 was $4,003,3413, and so we'll end up with hopefully a budget of less than or at $2,047,000.
Correct. That's where we think we're going to be based upon that column right now. If you accept the reductions that I've made in yellow, and then once you address the other line items that are yours, solely at your discretion, then we'll know exactly what our budget will be. But right now, with everything in that column all the way down, is the $2,947,100.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
I do have one question. Out of this year's budget, do we foresee all of that money being gone at the end of the year? Will there be something left? Will that then be introduced or added to the money we have or have available for next year? How does that work?
What's our projected fund balance right now, Stephen? Can you go down to the bottom? We project that by the end of the year, our fund balance will be about $489,000 for fund balance, based upon our expenditures right now.
That's the same fund balance that we ended up with at the end of fiscal year 19. So
correct.
fiscal year 20, any budget is balanced. The projected is balanced. Proposed is balanced. Revised is balanced. So that 489. So we're not anticipating adding to fund balance or subtracting with the fiscal year 21 budget.
I'm sorry, will that amount then be deducted from the developer's contribution, or?
No.
The developer's contribution is going to be the difference between budgeted expenditures and anticipated revenues from other sources.
Okay. Okay.
And as I remind council, the developer contribution is a shortfall funding mechanism that if we do not have revenue to cover something, then that's where that kicks in. But if we end up with revenue, that's why the development funding agreement from the developer is a flexible number. It may or may not be the 1.3 by the end of this coming year, depending on our expenses, depending on what shortfalls we actually have to cover our budget in whole. And the proposed budget does set aside a third of the contingency that we'll need by the time the developer funding is over, as well as a third of the first quarter revenue operating reserves that is required by the time that the developer leaves. So those two numbers will definitely drop to the bottom line. We will collect those this year and put them into fund balance. Does that make sense? Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you want to move on to the expenditures?
All right. Now, in the expenditures, if you're okay, we'll just move all the ones that are not highlighted in yellow over to the final budget. Those have been scrubbed a couple times from last time to now as to the minimum that we really need for those items. The ones where we have, as I stated in my memo, where we have some flexibility are the ones that I highlighted in yellow. And we can leave them as the revised budget that I'm proposing, which on the yellow ones that I worked on, we cut about another $100,000 out of the budget versus what was shown to you on July 13th, 2020. So it comes down to miscellaneous expense. Do you want to leave it cut to the 25 or do you want to go back to the 35? That's your choice. Need some direction there.
Well, what's the most we've ever used?
We used about 14.4 on the, let's see, that was, actually we haven't used any in that. We had it up at 75. We've cut it down to the 35 because we didn't know whether we were going to do some events and stuff prior to. So it was a plug number that was in the budget. If we didn't need it, we wouldn't fund it. It wouldn't come out of anywhere. It wouldn't drop to the bottom line.
Well, given the current health situation, I don't think there will be going to be a whole lot of events that anyone going to want to attend.
Right.
So I don't think there will be a whole lot of spending on that end.
That number, this is Vice Mayor Law Robinson, that number looks good to me.
Is the rest of the council okay with the 25?
Absolutely. I think we need to curb spending every chance we get, and we should start with us. So
Yep.
Okay.
100%.
All right.
I agree.
I agree
Right.
with that.
Okay. Next is council expenses. These are for when you all are attending different events, et cetera, or sponsoring a table at a dinner or something from the city. We've spent somewhere between $4,000 and $8,000. I'm thinking that depending on what we want to do next year, depending on how much promotion you all want to do as individuals with different events and stuff, I was figuring on cutting it from the proposed of 20 to 15, if you're okay with that, or want to do something else with it.
I'm good with that.
I'm okay with that as well.
It's fine.
We use
It's
the
still a
15.
number easily divisible by 5. let's keep it 15. That's fine with me.
Okay. So that's as you can see now, you've had expenses where Stephen backed up here. You can see that the developer contribution did drop a bit, because now you see you had total revenues of $227,400, which matches your expenses of $227,400. So that's how this whole spreadsheet will work out as we continue to go down the line. Okay. Next line item is city manager's budget of $222,900, which has been trimmed from the $251 projected from this year and the $254 that was adopted for 2020.
How'd you do that?
Rearrange some, since it's a contract for services situation, to rearrange some of the personnel, the back office into other areas, and redistributed the number of hours that are put in the city manager's area.
Okay. Very good.
So we'll move that one over, Stephen. Next is office supplies. This is basically a projection off of what close, a little bit under what we projected to use this year of 17,040. I think we can do some more electronic and cut some of our office supplies. We'll monitor that. That's why it's cut to the 15,900. Good with that number?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm
Good.
Move that over, Stephen.
All the iPads and stuff that we bought, is that in that supplies, or is that somewhere else?
That was a capital. Actually, we didn't buy the iPads. They were a gift from the developer when we first set up.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
The dues, license, and subscriptions are basically, we budgeted $4,900, $5,300. We've been projecting about $3,700 for this year. The $2,200 should be sufficient. Are we good?
What is the example for dues, licenses, and subscriptions?
Let's see here. What's in that column there?
The Florida League of Cities in there?
FCCMA, Amazon Prime, Palm Beach Post, Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce, membership dues, newspaper subscriptions, and stuff like that. Is what's in that line item. Want to move that over, Stephen? Okay, the next line item is the professional service website maintenance. In that line item is a number of items. It is management of the website. It is the cost of the website itself. It is also in that line is the code red numbers, expenses for that, the registration and fee for the software for the Unicode agenda software. I believe is also in that line item of the 18.
Is that a yearly expense?
Yes, it is. It includes email subscriptions, and ultimately we're working on now the other archiving that we have to do will also be charged in that account.
Okay.
This WebEx, is that included in that as well, or?
Yes, our WebEx expense is also in there. I believe, unless it's in. Yeah. The WebEx, I believe we charge the WebEx to that one as well. So we move that over, Stephen? Next is the city clerk position.
Okay.
Move that over, Stephen. Postage and freight. We've been running around 900 to 1,000. I think 1,400 is a decent number, depending on how much outside FedEx and stuff we actually have to do this coming year. Let's move that over, Stephen. Okay. In the printing is combination. There's some scanning and copying in there. There is the lease, Milner lease on one of the copy machines, and also the copage usage for that is done in other locations.
So my question there is this: we have the line item under facility services that's lease copier. We have it again over here.
We actually have three. One of them is the service and stuff on the copy machine and the copies itself, and the other is the leases.
So this part of it here is the maintenance, or what?
Yes, this is the service and the copy cost. I believe in this one, correct, Stephen?
Copy cost as in toner or ink, or if you lease the machine, why is there another cost? I'm not understanding that.
You pay per click for the maintenance on the piece of equipment. You usually get a base price and so many clicks in the base price, and then over that you pay. If you go over the base, then you pay the difference by a fixed number that's determined at the time of the contract.
Correct, and the number of black and white copies versus color copies all come into that number.
Since it's being shared by SID, how much of that is SID picking up? How much of that cost?
There is an allocation. I believe we bill back SID, correct, Stephen? For a percentage?
I'm not quite seeing what that is right now. That is the per copy charge. It's not the lease expense. And right now, Westlake is paying all of the per copy charge, and that's $3,700 of that total is per copy charges.
We can look. We'll install a. I believe we can put in a copy cost scenario and start back charging each other for that service. It's not.
Well, I think the accounting is in the copier, and you can set it.
Yeah.
At least a lot of them nowadays it's all set up in there, so they have to put a key code in, and then
Yeah,
they track back to that cost center.
We'll get a call.
You should be able to set it up per user.
Yes.
Well, we can set it up per department.
Yep.
We'll get that set up and start allocating that.
Clearly the mayor's expertise area.
Yes.
This is where you thrive, Mr. Manning.
Yes.
So what you'll see ultimately is up in the revenue section, you're going to see some due from other governmental entities. You'll see a transfer in on that.
So can we project kind of about how much we could take out that budget if we were to charge SIT or have SIT paid their cost?
The total would still be the same. What you're going to do is you're going to see additional revenue. In other words, on your expense side, the expense would be the same, but you'll see some revenue to go offset that expense.
Okay.
$3,700 of it is the copy machine. What's the other 17,000? 18,000.
Printing, you've got business cards, you've got Westside reprographics that we've had copies made and stuff. We've used the others copy cost of the 38, and then there's been charges from the Infomark office for copy costs that are done down there and shipped out as well. And we can look at that and cut that back some too, because most of it's being done up here now.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice. I know it's $20,000, but if we start taking care of these pennies, then the dollars will take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Would you be able to show by the September meeting on the revenue side what that might look like? If
I think by the meeting for the public hearing, we'll be able to have the backup as to what your revenue is going to generate on the breakdown of that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's up.
Next item is legal advertising. These are for the ads in the Palm Beach Post for all the ordinances, for your budget hearings, for your meetings, etc.
Just curious why the drop in $500.
Just based on projections.
Okay.
We should be having less. We've been doing a lot of advertising on code requirements and code ordinances and stuff, and those are trailing down, so the projection's a little bit lower for next year. Transfer that over,
Okay.
Steve. All right, the next $1,400 is dues, license, and subscriptions. It's the Intergovernmental Clearinghouse. It's EFAX subscription. It's Municipal Clerks Association membership dues and Florida Association of Clerks membership dues. All in that number. Move that over, Stephen. Okay. Now we'll go into finance. Auditing service, the auditors are holding steady at...
Ken?
Yeah.
Did you need the printing moved over or leave that for now?
Move it over for now and highlight it so we can get the breakdown. Because the expense is pretty much going to be there. It's just going to end up having to highlight it and show the revenue up top.
A few extra dollars in revenue.
Right.
Real quick question. This 125K, is that Zoe's salary or does that include other stuff?
It's Zoe and some other overhead.
Okay. Are there raises for the city clerk anywhere anticipated, or is that just part of the budget?
That's just part of the budget.
So there may be a raise in there, but it's going to cost us the same as it cost us last year for the most part.
Correct.
Got it.
Again, as a contract for service scenario, I have to work that out in my overall contract for whatever employees or individuals that are working on this are doing. Actually, just as a little bit of background, there are somewhere between 14 and 16 individuals from Infomart that touch the account every month, some more than others. And that's where, when you look at all this stuff, it's more difficult to do a contract for service type breakdown and understand exactly which department is which, because you have people that are leveraged considerably on the project.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for what it's worth, Zoe, you're doing a great job.
I second that.
Thank you.
Trust me, I'm working on keeping her happy.
I second that.
Okay, auditing services. The auditors are pretty much a fixed fee. You can see that we're projecting $5,250. We projected $5,300. They should be able to do that for the $5,300 on the engagement letter when it comes in. One of the things we do is we work with the auditors and try to keep them as flat as possible over time. So we'll move that over, Stephen. And the contracts finance is the accountant, AP, AR, and oversight. Head over, Stephen. All right, now we come down to legal counsel. This is your total discretion in this section, Mayor and Council. You can see the proposed of July 13th, 2020. The revised budget 2021 is based upon a split out of the actual expenses for the legal, the proposed outside additional, and the miscellaneous expenses that is part of the legal's contract and invoicing. And this discussion over to you all is to decide where you want to go with this.
City Attorney, would you speak to the budget, please?
Sure. Mayor, council members, thank you. It appears what we have here, the budget was rounded up from the 403 to the 404. What I requested at the last meeting was an additional attorney to be added to the staff. I've had conversations since then. It would not matter to me if that is outside legal services as additional legal needs arise or that full-time staff person. If we continue the path we've done before with contracting for outside legal counsel, even though the hourly rate is a little bit higher, it would not be bringing someone on to utilize those funds immediately. It would be on an as-needed basis. I think that would be sufficient for what we have anticipated for this next coming budget year based on some of the items we've had last year. It would be an ideal situation if those funds for outside legal services are not utilized. However, we do have a pending litigation that the city may or may not be engaged in later between Minto, Sid, and Indian Trails. That may require some attention, as well as just future matters as we continue to grow and develop. So that's the budget for legal. It includes myself, it includes Ephraim, the paralegal, as well as all the other items that Ken has mentioned previously. All of the software, the IT, the accounting, everything to operate legal is handled out of this budget. There's no other place to shift any of those responsibilities to. So the typical health insurance costs, accounting services, all of that is included within that budget.
Pam or Ken, either one, what is the exact percentage increase to this department?
Well, the projected would be from the 437 to the 532. What's that percentage, Stephen? Is that from the 508 to the 532 or the 437 to the 532, Stephen?
That's from the proposed budget. Did you want it from the actual?
From the projected actual is where we should be going.
About 18%, something like that.
It's about 22%.
So would that be in addition to the spreadsheet we already received from the 10%? Would we add that percentage to the 10% that's a part of the budget?
I'll let Stephen answer that question, but I don't believe so. I believe that other spreadsheet included the increase that was requested for the additional thing.
I'm not sure what other spreadsheet is being referred to.
No worries. Pam, can you give us just an example? I know you want to add another attorney in addition to the paralegal, but can you just give us some examples, some specific examples of what this other attorney would be doing?
Some of the other things that the other attorney would be doing with assisting with drafting some of the ordinances or resolutions that are brought before you. One of the things was some of the research required. We are working some of those issues out on the development agreement with Minto. So again, hopefully it will not be required, but based on where we were, that's what was going to be projected going forward. Some of the issues that we had Rick to come in for, that person may be able to address some of those things or address the day-to-day ordinances and resolutions and the plats that are coming so that I could address those legal issues and not bring in Rick on some of those matters. So it depends on the needs as we go forward, how those duties would be split.
If I can chime in real quick, Pam, what's your first choice? Is your first choice to bring in another attorney, and kind of your second choice to have these funds allocated for outside counsel? If you don't get your first choice, how are you seeing this right now?
My first choice would be to leave those funds set aside for outside counsel as needed, so that I do not have to immediately incur the expenses of a full-time person. So that would be the preference, and utilize them as needed.
So if I could just speak candidly, and Pam, you know I'm incredibly fond of you. I just think this number is entirely too high, but I'm not opposed to giving it to you. I wish that maybe there was a way to set it aside in some kind of like emergency disaster type legal fund. So, you know, heaven forbid we did need to go to it. But we do really just have to be more responsible. And I still don't understand why we all had to sit through individual presentations with Jerome instead of just one presentation at an actual meeting. I mean, that would have saved us like $20K in my eyes. I just think we really need to be more fiscally responsible when it comes to spending if we ever think we're going to stand on our own 2 feet as a city.
No, I absolutely agree with those concerns. I'm mindful of that. I'm mindful of the budget, so I have not requested additional or added, except Ephraim, and that was a year and a half ago. The way it's set aside now, outside legal services, that's not something that's automatically expended on a monthly basis. That's as needed. Those contracts will come to you, and you can approve that. If we don't have any additional conflicts or issues, we wouldn't utilize those funds. If we joined in that litigation, again, I explained, you don't always control those costs for outside litigation. So if you give the go-ahead to engage in that litigation, I can't tell you if that's going to be a $10,000 endeavor or a $100,000 endeavor. You don't know. You get in it, and you'll get, updates on where those expenditures are, and then you have to make a decision. But once you're engaged in litigation, it's difficult to back out.
Mhm.
So that's the way it's set aside for, and that would be my preference, is to leave it there only if it's needed, similar to the election issue. It was a timing.
Right. I mean, if we hire another attorney, that's it. We spent the money.
Correct. Then the money would be allocated on a monthly basis.
The outside counsel, Pam, would that then be subject to approval, or is that at your discretion?
Subject to approval. I have no objection to that being subject to your approval.
Okay.
My only concern is, and Pam, you do a fantastic job with our legal department. My only concern is because we have not built the city out completely, I think that it's a fairly large number. I would love to see you and Ken sit down and reconfigure some of those numbers and see if you could cut somewhere. But I do think because we have not built out completely, that it's a pretty hefty number for council to approve at this point. But that's just kind of how I feel about that. Like I said, I would love to see you and Ken sit down and kind of look at those numbers together. I do understand that, there may be times you need outside counsel, of course, because all other municipalities have that, but only because of where we are with our population, and that number, I would like to see some conversation among the two of you to maybe reconfigure.
Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, Councilman Patrick.
Go ahead.
Second to respond to her. I am comfortable with reducing that number now. Having this open, transparent conversation here. That number can be reduced based on what we spent last year with Rick and Judge Angelos for the elections. That number can be $50,000 if it's for outside counsel. If we have a legal issue and it goes above that or we come close to that, we can come back for a budget amendment. But I did not want to leave this council blindsided if there is litigation to come about. And like I said, with the one that's pending, I don't know what those costs are. And if it's not in the budget, that creates issues for Ken and his finance team to find that money.
Pam, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Just to clarify, so if we do cut this number, and something does come about where you need the legal services and we're short on that, we would have to do a budget amendment, correct? That's what you
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that being said, with contingency that it is subject to approval, I think it is better to budget for the money and have it available if needed, rather than having to go back and trying to find money somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well, either way, we're either approving the spending of the money or we're amending the budget. But either way, to spend the money, it's going to require a meeting, correct?
Yes.
It's not automatic spending. It's just, it's there if we need it. If we don't, we'll have it next year.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think we need to keep in mind too is that I know, Vice Mayor, you mentioned the population. Yeah, I don't feel that the population is what should be determining the budget because we're building things from scratch here. We're building the city from the ground up, and not only that, all the illegal, a lot of the resolutions and ordinances and stuff are coming that may, if it was a city that was 25, 30, 50 years old, a lot of this infrastructure stuff has been done already. So it requires more legal attention, I think, more at this time than it would be maybe even if it were to a city that's maybe 50,000 people. I don't know. A lot of things to watch right now.
Here would be my recommendation, just from looking at the spreadsheet. The amended budget for 2020 was $415,600. We've got this first line item as 404. I say we make that number 420. We make the 115 50,000 that Pam feels comfortable with. We could leave the miscellaneous expenses 13,000. That cuts it quite a bit. And then, heaven forbid, the what hits the fan, we could always come back and do an adjustment.
Where's that?
We're kind of being responsible.
Well, my question there is this: where will we take the money from, Ken, if we needed it?
Well, if we were into a fix where we had a legal issue, what I would have to do is, if I cannot pull it out of fund balance, if we don't have enough, then I would have to go back to the developer funding shortfall and talk to Minto regarding that issue.
So that would be a negotiation rather than.
It depends on how I would initially believe that it would be under the funding agreement, but depending on if we put ourselves in or we found ourselves in or what was creating it, it may be some, shall we say, the funding agreement is not a just carte blanche funding agreement for the developer.
Right.
So
that being said, I think it is better to have that money budgeted for and set aside than trying to find it somewhere else. It's not like we have a big revenue or whatever.
But if it is kind of set aside to an extent, but if we do not expend it at the end of the year, then it goes away because it doesn't necessarily drop to fund balance.
Yeah, but
kind of set aside meaning what?
Well, it's set aside in the budget as everybody's projected to be there. But for example, I believe we originally proposed, I think it was last year, about 1.9 of developer contributions. And because of the way things worked out, things we didn't spend that we thought we were going to spend, I think the developer contribution was about 1.1 versus the 1.9 that was originally budgeted. Because if it was budgeted as if we spent everything that we thought we were going to spend, and we didn't. So again, if we don't spend it, it just comes off the developer contribution to balance the budget.
With Ken, where did you take the money that, I know you moved some money around for legal expenses earlier.
Took it out of your special fund.
Where did you pull that money from?
We took it out of your special fund that you cut to $25,000.
Right.
Gotcha.
Special events, because I had 75 in there and I cut, I think, 56 something out of that. But again, it's places where we have things that you can move things, or you can sometimes move it around. But again, if you don't expend it in this line item at the end of the year, it's not necessarily going to drop to the bottom line as cash in the bank.
Right.
It's 6 in 1 for me. I could understand the desire to have it up front. And honestly, as long as it's all subject to approval,
yeah,
it's all the same.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Paul. I would prefer to have it budgeted, and then if we don't use it, fine, we don't use it. We'll carry it over or whatever.
So it's the will of the council to move all 3 lines over as they're stated, correct?
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Stephen? All right, Stephen, you can wipe out that percentage calculation you did. Okay. Next
Now, will we
section.
have to add some kind of language that all that extra money is conditioned to approval, or is that automatically conditioned to approval? How does that work?
You've given direction to Ken and I, it's understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Correct. Okay, as you can see, what used to be in comprehensive planning, engineering, building and stuff is now in its own special fund, so we'll skip past that. Going down to facility services, fairly self-explanatory.
I am, again, the copy, at least of this copier. I mean, there's an enormous cost. I don't know anything about copiers, but I would think, seeing that it's at least $22,000 a year, wouldn't you be able to buy one of these things for that kind of money?
It's actually, right now, we are on our leases, we have actually 3 copiers we're paying for. One that's not usable because of some issues with the copy quality and stuff, but we could not get out of the contract. I believe we have another
Year.
Is it 1 year left? It's a year or
1
10
year
months
left.
or something that we have to continue paying for until we can get out of it.
Is there then money that's going to be refunded from the company releasing it from question 1? The other one is, again, Sid, how much of that is Sid picking up?
I'll look at the copy cost. We'll look at that as well. I believe we'll make sure that there's some cost differential to it.
We have 3 copiers. One is for the building department's use. Sid isn't paying for any of that. The copier that Ken referred to, and the copier that we are using, Sid pays about 20% of that.
Are they printing that much less, or copying that much less, or is that just an agreement Westlake has with Sid?
There was an initial estimate based upon the workload that was going to be on the city and Sid's side. We'll look at that and evaluate it again.
Mm-hmm. And the copier that is not working, are we getting any money back for that, or?
It's lost cause.
And how much cost is that?
It was, 2.5, almost 3 years of lease payments in order to get out of the contract.
So we're paying for a copier we can't use. And that copier a year costs us how much money?
I forget what's the Toshiba costing us, Steve?
The Toshiba we're budgeting at $10,300 for the year. Westlake's share of that is $8,500.
Now, why can't we use it? I don't understand.
The quality of the copier and the copies and what it would do is not sufficient for what we need. You would put scans in, the mayor would understand this. Theoretically, they're all the same. The salesmen tell you they're great, et cetera. They demonstrate it. The demonstration looks good, but then you put it into work and all of a sudden it doesn't give you the quality of copies that you need or the quality of the scans that you have to have.
So we just leased a piece of junk, basically, and we're stuck with it.
We're stuck with it for 1 more year, and then we're out of it.
To the tune of $10K.
Yes.
If the legal department can't get us out of this, we're stuck. So I've seen this happen before.
Has the legal department tried?
Yes, yes,
We
I have.
have.
Trust, I have been, since it went kind of south after about 4 or 5 months into operation. It just couldn't make it work. It wouldn't perform with what we needed. We didn't pay for it for, gosh, darn near a year, and I had legal beating the heck out of them trying to get out of it, and finally couldn't get out of it, so we ended up having to pay them.
So, but as far as Mayor, I'm asking you, since that's your area of expertise, how much does one of these printers cost if you were to buy one, and then maybe a service contract along with it?
That's a very wide range depending on what options you get on the copier. It could be as little as $15,000 up to, I have one piece of equipment, it's $500,000 in the operation. So it goes from, one extreme, very low, inexpensive, but the kind of machine that I think required by the city to do what they would need is probably a 50 to 60,000 at least. And technology like a copier does not make sense to buy them.
They change every 3.5 years.
Outdated in about 2.5 to 3 years. The technology is outdated, and then you need to move on. The smaller pieces of equipment, they don't last. They're just not made to last more than a million copies, 1.5 million, and then they're junk anyhow. So it's a wide gamut there.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, this I think that this one here, we're just going to have to we have to bite the bullet and just hope and just be assured that it won't happen again. That's all.
Yeah, that 10,000.
Definitely not.
Pardon me? You can hire me as a consultant when you go to put a copier in.
Next time we go out, we'll bring you in the loop, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Strongly recommend that.
All right, so we'll move over the telephone, cable, and internet. Also, as an update, one of the things we are doing, we're changing our internet access to a higher speed access for some issues that we've been having, and we're going to be changing, eliminating the Comcast and going to an AT&T fiber into the building.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a fiber.
Yeah, we don't have it available down here. So it'd be good.
We're working on that, and it I believe it. I think overall, it's a small increase or break even if I remember the numbers, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. But it's pretty good. But it doubles our capacity and bandwidth.
Great.
I hope it works better for y'all than for the residents. Yeah, they have issues with AT&T.
Understood. Lease on the building, that is revised budget because depending on, again, this is the 12.5, because prior to COVID, we were looking at having to put in another building because we're on top of each other here. But with COVID, we've distributed the workforce, and a number of people are working from home, like the city clerk, the accountant. Michelle is working remotely, so we didn't need the office space, so we did not. Luckily, I did not go after the extra trailer object in the back. But depending on what happens with COVID, and as we bring people back in and continue to grow and having to have more people in the building, we'll need to add another unit out back, and that's what that anticipated 12.5 is.
So we're leaving the number 12.5, but the money's there if we need it, but
Correct.
chances are it might very well remain.
It may very well never get spent. And again, I'm also continuing to look at staff, my Infomark personnel, et cetera, as to who really needs to be in the house, who doesn't. are we as efficient working in remote situations? Always looking at that, because this is a paradigm shift for all of us in management and businesses to look at, can we do without having to have everybody in the building? So we'll move that over, Stephen. And we already talked about the lease copier. We'll move that over as well. The property insurance and stuff is basically the insurance that we cover and carry on the building, and it's part of your, we don't carry insurances up in the, let me look at something real quick. Yeah, we carry elected officials insurance up top. We carry all of our other general liability in this line item of $4,000.
Right.
What's elected official insurance?
Keep you out of trouble.
That's your, what is, I guess it's omissions and errors, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's up that.
So when you really do something messed up that Pam can't keep you out of up front, we got somebody else to try to get you out of trouble.
All right. Let's make sure that the premium's paid.
But don't go there in the first place, please. All right, move that over, Stephen, and then the miscellaneous services, which is
those are or have been costs related to the copier, such as property tax. We have to pay the property tax on that, things like that.
okay. All right, the next line item is the cleaning services. I have reduced it. We were cleaning the buildings, including the council chambers 3 times a week. I cut the council chambers to once a week since it's not utilized that much. We may, and that includes the 3 times a week for the main office, the building department, and they do all the cleaning. They empty the garbage. They clean up everything, etc. If we went to twice,
who's doing the cleaning? Is that a service?
It's a cleaning service.
Does it make sense to hire someone?
With personnel and overhead, I don't do run more than that.
Okay. I mean, it is still a pretty high cost. Here again, seeing that Sid is in the building, how much of that are they picking up?
Sid covers the cleaning of another building and stuff on their side. We did not distribute by percentage of office space utilized.
Well, the other buildings are being used by Westlake.
The other buildings are being used by Sid.
Okay, so Sid is using this building and along with Westlake, so shouldn't Sid pay half of that then?
Well, if you go by, I think the best way to divide it up would be by percentage of utilization. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 dedicated SID people, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 6 more on the 6 plus building department. On which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's like 9, 10 on the city side.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just asking.
Okay.
$43,000 to clean a building is a lot.
We could trim it some more and cut to twice a week cleanings. See how that works.
Ken?
Yeah.
That cleaning expense, anticipates the additional office space. So it's not just
with the extra one coming in. Okay, I'm sorry. So it's the extra building coming in is anticipated with the 43.5.
Correct.
So what will we be at if we took that out?
Well, we spent 38.4 last year, so assume it'd be the same. So what you're saying is Westlake uses 85% of the office, and all of the council chambers.
Right.
Sid uses like 15%.
As a rough estimate at this time, yes.
Does Sid want to grab 10% of that bill?
We'll look at the utilization and look at the two budgets and see if we can adjust some of it. But again, the 43.5 is projected with the extra building in there. If that doesn't come, that we would be closer to the 38.4.
Right.
It's projected for this year.
And what are you doing now? 3 times a week?
Correct.
I think if you drop down to 2 times a week, you would see a drastic difference. And that juice may not be worth the squeeze. You probably want to keep it at 3 times a week.
I think especially now with COVID, because they come in, they wipe down everything as well as cleaning it and emptying everything. We'll monitor it and look at it over the year. If we can trim back some, we will. All right, Steven, you want to move over to
the same
40?
Service that you guys use on your other 2 buildings?
Yes.
Any chance of negotiating with them? And
we can talk to them again, see if we can trim it some. The principal lease payments, these are split up the way they are based upon the auditor's recommendations. And they're related to I believe it's copiers, right, Stephen?
Yes, there are 2 leases for the copier, the main copier. There's a lease for the copier itself, and then there's a lease for the software that we use. The copier lease is included in the lease copier expense. The auditors decided that the software lease needed to be capitalized. So the payments for the software lease need to be classified as principal and interest rather than copier lease payments. So that's why there's those 2 lines there.
So really, we paying to lease the copiers. What was it? $32,000, $32,000. Yes.
It's right here. It's $36,800 is what we spent last year on these damn copiers.
Part of the software lease is the document management software called DocuWare. Is part of that, is in that lease of the software. It's our document management software.
I don't know. 40,000.
Yeah. Just see me next time.
Will do.
Upgrade
you guys
software upgrades
is what happened.
Software upgrades, are they covered in that, or if there's an upgrade, do we have to pay for that as well?
I have to go back and look at the actual agreement, but I believe it included on an annual basis all upgrades or modifications to the software.
That's correct, Ken. It was part of the maintenance cost, so it is included in that fee.
I believe so. Thank you.
Okay, and we're stuck on that for another year?
No,
on this whole contract?
On the one contract, yes, the Toshiba contract, we are. On the software for the leases and stuff on that, it's our document management software that we go in and we keep our records so we can go in and search our software for records requests.
Mm-hmm. And how long is that contract?
I think it's an evergreen, if I remember.
Yeah, it probably would be.
It's an evergreen until we decide to change it, and then if we change it, I forget what the actual fee is, but there is a fee to pull the data from that system to dump it into another system. But the DocuWare system seems to work well. We're using it quite a bit, and this is the city's piece of that. All right. So there's no other questions. Let's move those over, Stephen. Okay. Okay, next is administrative services. This is the other personnel, such as the front desk, Lynn, part of Lynn's time, Michelle's time, other back office time for administrative support. Move that over, Stephen. Okay. Professional service information technology is the GIS system. And this is for the work that's done by FTC for the city. Seminole Improvement has its own contract with FTC for the work that they do for SID. There's two separate invoices that come in. These are the individuals who make sure that we bring in all of our plats properly. They do all the addressing. They do the all those type things for us on the city side, all the plats, the plat recording, plat management, and the GIS software is all in that professional service information technology, as well as Net1, who is, and I believe Avatar is in there also, which is our online cloud service network and service. We have a cloud server for the city. The city pays a portion. SID pays their portion by percentage of usage of seats, as well as access. That's where the building department software will live on it. All of our documents are stored there, etc. So we'll move that over, Stephen. Next item is professional service compliance. That is what I had initially anticipated for code compliance. We were budgeting about $50K, didn't know how much commercial we were going to have. Proposed $30K, I'm cutting it to $25. Not sure how much commercial we're going to need over the next year. Is there any comment on that?
Is that only code compliance in regards to commercial, or will they do some of the residential code compliance as well?
Well, it would be potentially residential code compliance as well, but most of the code compliance on the residential is handled by the HOA first, and it has to get to a certain level before the city would get involved. So I'm thinking for this next year, the 25 should be sufficient for us. Are there any other questions? All right, Stephen, move the 25. Okay. Professional service consultants that was proposed of 50, I took out, which was for what we had used in the past was for lobbyists. I don't foresee us needing any lobbyists in the next year, so I took out the full amount.
No, Ken?
Yeah.
The consultants is Mark.
I thought I took that out.
Yeah, that's why it's not there. It's in the special revenue fund now. That's why it's not here.
It's not. Okay. I thought it was the consultants. Where's the
lobbyist?
The lobbyist. Did I miss that up front?
That should be right there.
Oh, cut it to 24. Okay. Again, if we don't need it, again that drops out. So I'm sorry about that. I was misinformed.
Yeah,
apologize.
the 50,000 is for the consultants to work on permits.
On the other side of permits. Okay.
Construction.
Very good. All right. Next line item is the miscellaneous public relations, which you have a contract coming before you to help us get the message out for Westlake going forward, tell our story, do some press releases, promote the Happy program and stuff like that. What I'm proposing is $50,000 in next year's budget to utilize that. If there are no questions, we can move that over, Stephen.
Would that be conditioned to approval on how we spent that money? Or
the way the contract that's coming before you is written, it's a blanket contract where if a item needs to be done and it's within the spending authority of the manager, the individual would put together a proposal with the scope, deliverables, time frame, and cost. If it's within my budget authority to spend, I would make it happen based upon input and direction of where we need to get to as far as getting a message out. If it's over my spending authority, it would go to council for approval.
Even if it's within your spending authority, would you at least keep us informed? Not necessarily an approval, but hey,
yes, I will be letting you. I will be letting you all know.
This marketing campaign for
we're doing a camp. One of the first things I want to do is get on the website of the story of where the history, et cetera, of where Westlake came from. Where did we start? You know, you got to go way back into the thing, and we have a lot of the data and the information. I need somebody to tell the story properly. Okay. I want to get that story out, so it's on the website. Not unlike, I think it's either Seminole County or Osceola County has a pretty good history of, you know, where they came from, what happened, how they got to where they are now. I think that's critical for not only us now, but as the future, as people continue to go, is to say, where do we start? How do we go? And where are we going to? I believe that's an important factor that we need to do.
Cool.
All right. General government is.
Can I for 1 second go back to the professional compliance service, the consultants? I mean, the professional service consultants. What are they doing that our city engineers or SIT engineers are not doing? What are we getting there for this?
There's some other contract or permit coordination that is being done on the city side with SID. It's really a city obligation to make sure some of that coordination is done. So that's where it's covered.
For that, we need outside consultants.
I have somebody that is here that has been on this property for 25 or 30 years, and I'm using their expertise of understanding the idiosyncrasies of the process on the permitting to make sure we're not going sideways.
Is that a person that then works with Pam or? I'm not.
They work primarily with myself.
I'm not understanding with the permitting. I mean, we have our city lawyer, we have the city engineer. What is that person doing that they are not?
They're doing some coordination they're doing coordination between the city and Sid on engineering, which is it's not engineering, but on permits and documentation backup on those permits.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't. I'm not understanding why we need that when we have the city engineers and Sid has their engineers and we have Elsa, I believe is the name. We have all these people, and yet we need another outside person to mitigate between them, between Sid and Westlake. And
Ken, is this the gentleman that that's been on the property for like 20, 30 years, and we basically inherited him when we got with Westlake?
No, this is Mark, who was here, Mark Dubois. He was here during the years. He left for a number of years and worked for Palm Beach County Water and Utilities, and he's retired, and I use him as a part-time type utilization to keep things checked and double-checked on situations.
Well, that amount was is $9,488 projected for
correct
2020.
And also in last
$9,488 to $50,000.
Well, because the initial proposed budget I was looking at is we were going to have to add another person in the overall processes here. I was looking at possibly having to add another body, but I don't believe I'll have to. And we'll probably be in the other expenditures, will probably be under the 9,000 stuff. Right now it's budgeted over on the other side, but that will probably be more closer to the $9,400 for next year as well.
Yeah.
So in 2019, we spent 14,000 on him.
Correct.
You thought we were only going to spend 10 in 2020, but you think we need 50 in 2021?
Well, because I was looking at possibly having to add another person as we're growing.
so this person, and I'm going back to Pam and her request for her funds. Here we have a person we were willing to budget $50,000 for, where I have difficulty.
It's not for that person. It's that person. It's that person plus another person, if necessary. But we would not be adding anybody to that area without your approval to increase our overall contract.
So how much of that $50,000 is subject to our approval?
42,000 and some change.
Ken, so if we spent 13,775 in 2019, I mean, reasonably, can we double that number and round up and make that the proposed budget line item?
Sure, we can move that. We can move that number.
28,000. Make it 28,000 instead of 50.
I'm fine with that. We can move that we can move that number into the 28 into the special fund. That's not a problem.
You guys good with that?
Yeah, I am.
All right, Steve, make a note to move that into the special fund at the 28 that was recommended.
I mean, that's more than double what we spent on him last year. So if you do, for whatever reason, decide to bring on another person, even though you think you won't need it, but at least we.
And again, it's that you would have to approve that. Then I'm assuming.
Still condition to approval. I agree with you.
Yeah.
If we're adding anybody, it would be in addition to a contract, so you all would have to approve that additional contract.
Could we just plug the number 28,000 in there right now so that we can get the accurate number on?
Well, it's not going to show. Well, it's out of this budget here. It's in the other special funds budget. Mm-hmm. So it won't show. It won't make any impact here. It's already gone from this.
It's already been deleted here, is what you're saying.
Right. Okay. Yep. Makes sense.
Okay.
Nice catch, Councilman Paul.
Yep.
Okay. Miscellaneous public
Thank
relations.
you.
Let's see. What do we have? Let's see it in my notes here. Steve, what do we have in the miscellaneous public relations line? I don't see it in my notes. Sorry about that, guys.
Ken, I believe that's what you just went over with the S.A. Nelson agreement.
Yeah.
We talked about public relations already.
Right.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yep, got that one.
That's your
Brain dead. I'm sorry,
about
everybody.
how Westlake came to become Westlake.
All right. Let's keep moving. General government. General government is a catch-all. It's for various vendors and recurring expenditures that aren't budgeted other places. They occur. We did actual 51 one year because we didn't have some of the things allocated, as I explained in one of my earlier comments. You start out, it's all kind of in one bucket, and as we continue to grow, we keep separating the budgets. We don't expect to spend that much this year, but it's a cushion to I don't know what may pop up.
You've really only spent $417 so far in this?
That's what we've done this year. Because we've allocated, we did a good job of reallocating, but there's some things that pop up from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Cool.
Yep. Move that over, Steve.
Yeah, move it.
And I like that you cut it in half from, oh no, you didn't, but the emergency.
47, yeah. Emergency communications, this is kind of tied to some of the expenses on that. We'll be going from code red. During times of emergency, we have to put out some emergency notices, et cetera, so that's what that is in there for. It's anticipated. I'm hoping we don't have any real emergencies to be playing with this next year, but you got to have some dollars there somewhere.
Okay.
All right, move that over, Steve. Okay, contract sheriffs. We had budgeted to 677, projected as 650. Originally, I proposed a 677 because I had in there for special events, et cetera, like when we had the COVID testing pop up, we paid for the officer. I was expecting some extra off-duty type requirements, permit needed. Instead of the 677, I'm just putting in the 662, which is the 650, which is the base contract for PBSO, and some extra for off-duty if necessary. One of the questions that was brought up to me, and I know the body cams of the PBSO are in play. I did check with PBSO. Their intent right now and what they will be using initially is the half-cent funding for those body cams for all of their officers. Do I expect in future years, because of the extra personnel they'll have to put on in the back office, do I expect to see some additional cost per person for those body cams? Yes. What it's going to be, I don't know, but I believe we're good with the 662 for next year, and then we'll go from there. Are there any other questions for? Yes, ma'am.
Just a couple. Do you think, so I do know that $2 million, the county is going to pick up that $2 million for the body cams. However, do you anticipate that they are going to have the municipalities pick up for the servers that they're going to have to create?
No, in my discussions with PBSO, they're going to be using the half-cent sales tax, and they'll be putting it all together. And like I said, down the road, I expect, because they're going to probably have to hire a dozen or so people to proof the videos prior to for public records request, et cetera, as it goes out. So I do expect the overall cost of per officer, like right now, I believe our officers are somewhere around $139,000, $140,000 per officer per year. Do I expect that to go up to like 141, up by $1,000 a year? Yeah, I believe we'll see some of that increase over time.
Sure. And so based on the number, our population, that is, we haven't gotten the census numbers in, so we know that's going to increase based on what we have now. So we have a total of, I think this number indicates about 5 or 6 officers, staff 5 or 6 officers.
It's one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, will we be? I know this is set in stone for this particular for 21, but as it relates to 22, we're of course I'm sure going to have to increase officers. So that means this budget definitely will go up, as well as we may have servers coming on, and we will have, I'm hoping, department implemented, because now we really don't have a lot of department for us to be a municipality. So with the implementation of department, we're going to have to think of money that's allocated for that too. Is that correct?
As far as the officer count, if I remember the contract correct with PBSO, we get to evaluate, and any increase in the number of officers would be based upon calls and levels of service that we require prior to adding any officers, and we get to determine that, not just an automatic increase from PBSO based upon population. There's a call mix and a response mix that's all worked in together as far as adding any personnel. I don't believe right now that we'll be, like I said, stuck with any extra server costs and stuff like that. Do I think we will be needing to go to 2 officers full-time? No, not for another 3 to 5 years. Do I believe we'd have to have 2 full-time officers on duty all the time? So I think we're going to be fine with the 1 officer 24/7. We may, year after next, look at a partial increase to get more coverage. We'll have to work with PBSO on how to make that happen. But right now, it takes 5 officers for 1 full-time.
Okay.
And I'm not willing to double my budget in a year.
Okay.
Well, as far as the sheriff's department, just for the record, I think that budget right now, or as we had it, had been too high anyway. We entered into a contract at the time where it was much less than what it is now. Up until today, the sheriffs have no jurisdiction within the city. I never understood why we entered in this contract, and with this amount, when we're not getting the full benefit of it.
Councilman Paul, what you're seeing is the officers have jurisdiction over all of the outside common areas. What they do not have at this point in time, and it's in the county's offices right now, is the agreement, because if you have private roads or a private HOA, you have to have a special agreement with the police department, regardless of whether it's PBSO or a city police department or whatever, in order to enforce the laws behind the gates. That's just what traffic laws behind the gates, correct. Other laws they can respond to, but the traffic they cannot.
Yeah,
the money that we pay, shouldn't that have been part of that contract, they could have serviced the outside areas even without that contract. You know, there's no limit on that. So it's not like they couldn't have patrolled the outside areas without any contract.
If we did not have a contract with them, we would have had to enter an agreement, the same as the HOAs are, to patrol the main streets. But by having the contract, the rest of the area that is not behind, that is not in part of a gated community, is covered totally by PBSO. So out of the 4,000 acres, the two, Westlake and Hammocks, part of Sky Cove, and Crestwind are not covered because they have not completed the agreement with the county to authorize them to enforce the traffic laws behind the gates. All the other laws are enforced all over. In other words, if there's a domestic, if there's whatever, shooting, whatever, they respond to behind the gates and they cover. It's just the traffic laws until they get the agreements in place that they cannot enforce behind the gates.
I got it. But at the end of the day, we are paying taxes. What I'm saying is we entered into this agreement for a huge amount of money that we didn't have to begin with. And I really wish we would have started off with a much lesser amount and tried to negotiate that a little more.
We did negotiate, and I did push off, actually, technically, when we incorporated in 2016, we were supposed to have our own police department. I tap danced and negotiated with the sheriff's office from 2016 until, I believe it's last year, correct, Stephen? Yes, 19 and 2020 budget until 2020. That's almost 4 years that I negotiated with the sheriff to not force us to have a full-time officer on duty. When we started getting more residents out here and stuff, he continued to push the button because technically he could have pushed the button and put us in jeopardy on day one and say, look, you either have to have a your own full-time police department or have a full-time officer. I worked with them for 4 years to minimize the expenses for the city. And now we're at a point where we needed to have the full-time officer 24/7. That's why we picked up the cost at this point in time.
Okay.
All right, Steve, you want to move over to 662? Okay. On the electricity,
Real quick, Ken. When you were running the numbers and you thought that Westlake was going to have its very own police department, what was that going to cost us?
Double plus what you're paying.
Yeah, that's very expensive. And not only that,
I mean,
what we're getting the bang for our buck right now is a lot better than it would be if we were putting our own police and force. We have to have a building. We'd have to build a building.
I have to agree with you. I think that safety and security of our citizens is probably our number one responsibility, and that is one number that, I want to get our guys in blue, whatever they need. That's one number I'm not willing to pinch pennies on.
And one of the things that we have to remember is it's one full-time officer, it's a day sergeant and a night sergeant, it's a lieutenant, it's the major, it is SWAT if necessary, it is canine, it is drug enforcement, it is helicopters, it is whatever else we need is included in that cost. So if we have any kind of incident out here, the full resources of PBSO are available for whatever we need. And I've been in a department before where we try to do that, and it, keeping SWAT, et cetera, training, et cetera, was just astronomical. So this is the best bang.
And honestly, Councilman Paul, initially, when we started having the conversations, I too felt as though it was hefty, but I had conversations with several of the police officers, one being Captain Emery Payne and our major, our Western Regional Major, Eric Coleman. I would suggest you getting a one-on-one meeting with him so he can walk you through exactly what that budget is and what it offers, and then you'll be able to kind of get a better understanding of the why behind the what of that budget. And honestly, several of those officers, the captains, majors that I have spoken with, they laughed and when I told them how much we were paying, because they said we really got a big deal. So I would just suggest you maybe getting some one-on-one time with Major Coleman, who is the regional major for the Western community. They're more than happy to do that, or either Taylor, so you can kind of get a good understanding of what that budget is.
Just for the record, but at no means am I against safety, security, or whatever. I am not against the police. This, however, is a budget meeting, and then I'm going to try everything on every point to save a few bucks if I can. So that's what that is about. It's not about police or whatever.
Understood.
Yep.
All right, next item is electricity. That is for paying for one of the things that we have to pay for is the signs on the main Seminole Pratt Whitney Road, as well as all the traffic signals throughout. Part of our responsibility, and we're paying for street lights. That's what that projection is for next year. No other questions? We can move that over, Stephen. Next item was R&M parks. Last year I had put in 50 because I thought we would potentially have some parks. I know I was going to see any parks. I had 25. I took it out because I do not believe we'll have any park to worry about R&M or anything on for the next year. The R&M community maintenance is 26.7. That is for paying some of the SID employees to handle all the trash cans, ordering, tracking, delivering, picking up, et cetera, to SID for doing that service. Since the city does not have any people to do that service, we're utilizing the employees that are associated with Seminole Improvement District to do that, and we're paying SID for that. No other questions? Move that over, Stephen. Operating supplies is
trash bins.
Trash bins. That's our estimated expense for buying additional trash bins as the population continues to grow.
But then we make some of that back under revenue up top, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Got it. Now the fitness park that would hopefully get approved and built by the end of the year, that has nothing to do with that park line item, the R&M parks?
No, that park, as I understand, it's on Seminole Improvement District property, et cetera, so it would be dedicated and it would be an operational expense to Seminole Improvement District.
Gotcha. That's in your budget. Understood.
It's on the other hat. All right. Operating supplies. Oh, that we just went through that. You want to move that over, Stephen? Now we go down to miscellaneous contingency. And as I explained before, that is projected as to 1/3 of the contingency that will be required by the time that Minto's funding agreement rolls out in 2023. And then, so we're putting away 1/3 each year, this year and the next 2 years, so that we have the amount that's appropriate based upon good accounting procedures and management processes. And the last item here, the reserves, is 1/3 of the operating reserves for the first quarter, which is part of a requirement since you do not receive your revenue from the county until roughly December and January. So you have to operate October, November, and December on your reserves until you get your revenue in for the current year. And based upon what we've done so far, we're looking at we're done at a $2.947 million budget with a developer contribution of projected at about 1.13, right? Yeah, 1.347. That's if we expend every expense, every line item that's put in the budget at its full capacity. That would be what the developer would have to kick in over the next year, unless we get other revenues from other places to offset that.
Now, how does that get paid? Do we draw from that quarterly? How do we actually?
Yeah, it's in the agreement.
1.3.
It's in the agreement. We send a reconciliation over to Minto, basically quarterly, and say we need X amount of dollars based upon our cash flow, et cetera, and then they fund us.
Yeah, let's back up just a second. I don't see it. I see my city hall, future city hall had $100,000 in it back in 2020. We don't have anything.
Correct. One of the items that we were working on, I did not budget that at this point in time because one of the discussions that we have been having was that, as we stated earlier, the funding of that would have to be by some kind of bonds and stuff that the city would not be able to afford the bonds at this point in time. That might have to be floated by bonds from SID, which would then go against all the properties. Have SID float the bonds since they have the bonding capacity that the city does not have. And also in the discussions for the city hall, one of my discussions with Mr. Carter was that they are willing to help us with the design and plans for a potential city hall based upon your directions of what we need it to look like. I do have, which I'll send out to the city council, I have had Nielsa, the planning director, put together some preliminary site plan and city hall based upon the parcel of property that we're expected to get in C3. And then we can work from that and go for the design of potential city hall.
But that's another discussion, of course.
Right.
As everyone, I know that I'm familiar with the piece of property that Mr. Carter and Minto have proposed, but has everyone else familiar with that?
Not exactly, no.
Okay, so I think that's another discussion, not for tonight, because I'd like to stick on here, but we need collectively, the council needs to understand what's being proposed as to what piece of property, what the expense is going to be, and I know that I did have a commitment from Mr. Carter on a piece of real estate there, and also with the soft cost. But I think that the rest of the council needs to be aware of what the plan is and where it would be, and the size of the property and what its location is.
Actually, I believe the council did receive it. It's in part of the initial preliminary developer agreement that I believe was sent out to everyone. I believe the entire council received a copy of that developer agreement when it came out. And I believe the sketch is in that document, but I will make sure that a sketch is put together along with the Nielsa concepts so that the council is aware of the potential location and or soft costs that are being contributed.
Right.
I think it's imperative that we keep City Hall a high priority and keep pushing for it, because it's one of those things that can will just continue to get kicked down the road. You know, we need to get something solid. You know, if that's the land, whatever land that is, and let's convey it. I mean, let's get something tangible so we can start building this thing.
It's part of the developer agreement, and as we get through the developer agreement, it is my understanding that I believe, if I recall the developer agreement, the initial proposal was within 90 days after the developer agreement was approved and accepted by the city council, that piece of property would be conveyed.
Why does it have to be contingent on a developer agreement? That really ticks me off, that part, because I don't think it should be contingent on anything. If it should be conveyed to the city, it's conveyed to the city. That sounds like, oh, well, if you approve our development agreement, now we're going to give you the piece of property. I don't like that.
Not in defense of the developer, but having worked on both sides of this equation for years, off and on, I have seen where somebody would offer up something and then the city comes back for more, or the county comes back for more and more and more, and it just never stops. So, when that occurs, people get gun shy, and I think that's a conversation that needs to be had between individual council members and Mr. Carter as to why it's tied to the developer agreement.
Okay, I'll call him tomorrow.
If nothing else, I think it gives us some insight as to, the power of this development agreement and what it's worth. I'd like to see what this piece of property is. I'm going to go back and look at that development agreement. You said it's in the beginning there.
Yep, it's in there.
I must have missed it.
Sorry, I'll give Mr. Carter a call tomorrow.
Okay. And any of the other council members, reach out to him and get your input as to where it's going.
We may need to, if we need to get together as a council to review the proposed property and any other costs that are involved in this, that's something we should do soon.
All right, we'll work on scheduling a meeting to look at where you want to go with it and go from there. I'll get you out the preliminary information we have thus far, and then we can schedule.
Okay. City Hall workshop. I like it.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions on the budget, or can we proceed with what we have now and get it ready for the September?
I'm in favor of what we have together now.
Okay, then we will proceed with this.
That one line that had to be edited for the consultant, the 26,000 or whatever it was,
yeah,
28K.
28.
Yeah.
That's on this budget, or that's in the where is
that's
that?
In the special. That's in the special. That's in the special. Special revenue fund, which is comprehensive planning services. And that has the building department, zoning department, and engineering departments in it, and permitting.
Okay.
So that's where that would show up in there, and we'll work on it.
Good.
Okay.
So do we have any other questions? Comments?
I'm gonna have nightmares about that copy machine, that's all.
Trust me, I want to get rid of that anchor as bad as you guys do.
My fee's going to be a lot less than that when the next one comes up.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any further business here? Let's see. Management discussion. We have a letter.
Yes, you have my memorandum.
Yep. I read it. I assume everyone else has read it. We have any comments?
Yes. I'll make a comment. After reading the memorandum, I don't see any problem with Ken sharing both hats, at least until the workload increases. I think we should keep it how it is.
I tend to agree with you 100%. I think that any kind of a shakeup in that field right now would be just catastrophic and, not self-serving whatsoever. I think it would do way more damage than any potential good. I'm perfectly content leaving it the way it is. I think you do a fine job, Mr. Castle.
Appreciate it.
Okay. That end the discussion on that? Any other comments? I show none, so let's move on. We have any other comments from the city council?
No.
Showing none, I guess. City attorney, any comments?
No, thank you guys for your time this evening and going through all of these items.
And Mr. Castle?
Nothing additional at this time. I will be sending out that information along with some other memos that I'm working on to the council to appraise you of different things that are going on.
Terrific. Thank you.
And by the way, I will be out next week on vacation finally.
Oh, good for you. You deserve it.
Finally got it nailed down where I don't have any conflicts.
Ken, did you get a chance to put out some kind of an explanation on that bubbling in the street?
No, I'll get that out in the morning to Zoe to get it out on the internet and thing. Yeah, just as for those that may be on the call and for the council, the rain that occurred yesterday was 2.25 inches in less than 40 minutes, which wreaks havoc with any kind of a drainage system, because anytime you're over 1 inch an hour, it's pretty hefty. The bubbling that occurred was as that much water hits the streets and goes in and is going into the drains, it's filling the pipes up. So you get a gurgling sound and you get the air having to escape out of the pipe because you get too much water going in so fast that the air can't escape well. So you'll get the gurgling and bubbling out of the drains. Also in the areas that are active construction, some of those drains have in filter fabric, which also slows down the water to keep the dirt and stuff out. So you have kind of both those things happening at the same time. But the biggest is the fact that it was 2.25 inches in less than 40 minutes. That was a biggie.
Oh. All right. Zoe, do we have any public comment?
We did not receive any previous public comment cards. However, I'll give the audience a moment to raise their virtual hand. If you have a comment, please raise your virtual hand. If you're unable to do so, please unmute yourself and state your name and address.
Why am I in the dark?
Did you pay your electric bill, Mr. O'Connor?
It was light when we started this meeting.
I see no further comments, Mayor.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for the last 2.5 hours being together here, or 2 hours, I should say. And we'll adjourn the meeting at 8:38 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Have a good one.
Talk to you soon. Thanks,
Bye.
guys.